Hello, everybody, or a few people. I'll get started in a few minutes as always. Doing my 3-minute early start to make sure nothing is broken. I'm sure there's something broken that I don't know about. Everyone's fine. Hello, Magdalena and Steven. You guys had a nice, well, if you're in the States, you guys had a nice Thanksgiving. Probably a pretty chill one compared to most years. You like the animations that I've been doing on Instagram? How is that you get on those? Hey Alex, thanks for coming out, man. I don't know, I guess I don't understand the question, but yeah, Thanksgiving for us was good. I mean, it's a bummer that we weren't able to get together with more family, but I got 2 kids, I got a beautiful wife, and we got to celebrate together. Now, granted, we're stuck together anyway because of all this lockdown stuff, but I think everyone was pretty into it this year, pretty thankful for everything that we had going on, so it's good. It's good. I hope you guys all had the kind of break where you kind of assess all the good things you got going on. Alright, I am going to get set up to go. Get rid of this thing. So, oh, sorry. So the question was, is that why the animations now? Yeah, I've wanted to be an animator since before I wanted to do just about anything in art. But I'm the kind of flighty person that just I don't like to draw the same thing over and over and over too much, and so I always, no matter how much time I spend learning how to animate, I fall out of graces with it really fast, and there's a lot of lumps you gotta take to be a good animator, and a lot of my best friends are animators, and it's just like watching magic, so every once in a while I get the itch. But I've been watching a lot of old cartoons, thinking about a lot of projects that I have coming up, and just wanted to kind of jump in there and start playing around with some of the animation stuff. But tonight I wanted to get away from some of the rendering stuff that we've been doing, which I know is fun, and I think we're going to get back to it because there's endless amounts of that stuff that we can do. Even if it's repeat stuff, it's just like just doing it over and over and just kind of like watching it, different ways to do it. But tonight I was just kind of going to sketch ideas and talk about like one particular way to kind of come up with unique ideas. And that's kind of using reference, but I'm hoping that we're going to talk about ways to use reference in ways that are a little less direct and a little bit more implied, so that it's still coming a lot from where like that unique voice that's just from you. So alright, Sleeping Dumplings is out. Thanks for coming out. Looking Closer. It's weird calling you guys by your handles, but it's nice to have you guys all out. But yeah, animation is fun, and I was looking at a lot of the old Popeye stuff recently, and it just blows my mind how good it is. Blows my mind. So tonight what I did, and I tried not to start letting my brain start figuring things out ahead of time because I kind of wanted to do it, come up with ideas on the fly. Not that that's like a safe thing to do for me, but so I thought we'd sort of like play off of like using reference, but in the way that I think is a healthier way to use reference. So I gathered some insects over here. I can zoom in on some of these. They're pretty great. So like there's like these roly-poly bugs. There's this rhinoceros beetle. I think this is some sort of fly. I don't remember what this animal is called, but it's got this beautiful plating and this beautiful kind of like color pattern. Hey Jake, hey Casper. And then as sort of like opposition, I gathered some seemingly a bit more reference, a little bit less connected reference of a gorilla, of motorcycles, kind of like a space suit. I think this is from the Apollo mission, and something really cute like this little Boston Terrier here. And so I thought we could use insects as kind of like the impetus for how we're gonna kind of think about different ideas, different ways to use insects, and then use this like hodgepodge of different reference over here. And I don't really know what I'm going to do right now. I think I know where I'm going to start with this gorilla guy over here, this big silverback. But we might mix and match some of this stuff. There might be some spacesuit element things or mechanical things and different. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. So I'm gonna get started on just kind of getting a form and a silhouette going here. Let me lock these layers so I don't accidentally do something with them. Corgi butts, yeah. That's not a corgi. That's a Boston Terrier. It's gotta be a Boston Terrier. Virtual SG, Octavio. Sorry, how you guys doing? Corgi butts. Okay, we're getting off topic. So I'm going to start with this kind of like silverback thing, and I think we're going to use all the sort of like insect influences. Now, I don't normally work this way. I don't normally just like lather my page with reference, but I do spend some time before each session of drawing, and I just kind of I have like, Pinterest pages or just do web searches, and I just try and have something hit me that's like something I haven't seen before. And a lot of times that, kind of gets my warm-ups going, or just like, is a shape or a shape and logic that I want to focus on. But I don't normally paste things onto the page, but I think because you guys want to see what I'm looking at and what's going on in my head, I kind of thought it was a good idea to put it all together. So let's start. Let's get something going here. So I'm going to start with like this kind of like gorilla shape. And then we'll start adding some forms in that are a bit more insectoid rather than gorilla. So just start work. Yeah, I'm so right. Like I'm gonna definitely be using this like gorilla shape. This is virtual SG. I'm gonna start with this kind of like gorilla shape, but I think I like the way some of this plating is working on this like this roly poly bug. I like the kind of like heavy shell shapes that are going on in this rhinoceros beetle and this plated beetle. And then I like the articulation that's going on in the legs on this fly. So I think I'm gonna lean into those in different ways. But part of like why I wanted to to bring in more than one piece of reference, which is the first thing that I always recommend is not to just pick one piece of reference, because I think you start eyeballing specificity of things on one piece of reference versus having kind of array that you can kind of like mix and match with. If you pick one thing, then it just definitely feels like you're calling from something too specific. That's not a bad thing if that's what you're going for, but I think for this exercise we want it to feel a little bit more just implied by insects, but not necessarily insects. So I'm gonna play with this like articulated kind of like bug shape. I'm gonna use the like roly poly for the shoulders a little bit. Get some of that going on. Love those roly polies. I wish that was the kind of thing you could have like hanging out with you all day long. And then all these cool like spikes and stuff going on. So like if I'm designing for a client and I start getting like ideas of what the world looks like, you know, like or what the behaviors of the character are like, this is a really great starting exercise for finding ways to kind of like, you know, if something's a predatory animal, then you can start looking up like predators and start getting your head around like exactly what those mean. But then I think finding characters or, you know, reference out there that isn't quite answering that question to kind of like mash into that a little bit can be really interesting. I always liked how gorillas have this like knuckle pose, so I want to work that in where most of the knuckles are like smashed on the ground, but then there's like this nice lean out from the foreground knuckle, the main knuckle. We'll get some carapace going on. And I think we're gonna lower the head a little bit or build up some sort of like back structure here. Yeah, so we'll play with like this kind of like plating where it goes down the spine, and that already feels a lot cooler. Oh, yeah, let me get some caffeine in me too. I got up a little too early today, so definitely wanted to get all my work done before all this, but appreciate it. I'm not sure I'm going to keep the spikes on the back. I do like the kind of cleanliness of those plates, but we'll see. musculature, we'll just make sure he's really pressing down on this other leg over here. Gives us an opportunity to show a little bit of the underside here, where kind of makes you wonder what's going on over here. And then I think for the back legs we'll go a little bit more spidery, a little bit more sinewy. So we'll get these like points in there. Tonight's tea. I don't drink coffee at night. I can't drink coffee at night. I wish I could. Coffee is so effective for me that I won't be able to go to sleep. So tea is just mild enough. So I drink black tea at night, which is pretty caffeinated, but not enough to keep me from going to sleep eventually. But yeah, oh man, I look forward to waking up to my cups of coffee. I drink way too much coffee, but I run on it. Alright, so let's see. I think he's gonna need some small elements here. Right? There, so we got a little bit of each of these bugs worked into sort of like the gorilla shape. You know, the funny thing about the vernacular around character design is you learn all kinds of weird words like carapace and sinewy and I don't know. I find having conversations with people who have done character design for a long periods of time, their entire vernacular, their whole vocabulary is like descriptors, because you have to be able to describe things with your hands to people all the time or to other designers, and try and get buy off on the stuff. And you know, if you don't have a pen and paper in front of you and you're just desperately trying to get an idea across, you just have to have all this like flowery language of shapes and descriptors to kind of help you along. And I think most character designers, much like animators, how they make sounds and oomphs and can't hold still when they're describing things. Most character designers, will shape things with their hands, and or they'll move into the form of something when they're describing it. It's pretty funny. But I always laughed when I heard the animators in the studio having meetings, and there was far more sound effects than there were words going on, and yet they were all communicating just fine. So when I'm just doing designs like this, I usually do start with I work a little bit lighter as I kind of figure out what my forms are, and then I'll go back in when I'm happy with them, and I'll just kind of add the weight to them. There are times where I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with the forms, and I just start with those heavy forms. But if I'm still trying to figure things out, if the rough that I did isn't answering enough questions quite yet, I'll start light. Yeah, when you're talking with clients or your boss or whoever you're talking about, and you're trying to get an idea across. You definitely have to put on a good show. I always found that really stressful, but once you kind of, my boss in particular at Insomniac, I think he kind of enjoyed watching people get passionate about things, even more. I mean, that's when you know you're working for a really great person, regardless of who they are, is when they see the passion that you have, and if you're bringing passion to the table, and they're more interested in the fact that you are excited about it than the idea itself, because they know that that's going to yield a better product. I mean, that's some smart leadership right there. I look for that in people that I want to work for. Yeah, the backstory with these characters. If I'm lucky enough to be able to, for the Ratchet and Clank characters, a lot of times we were able to name the characters and actually come up with a lot of the backstories ourselves, because the designers were busy just trying to make a fun game, and we're living with these characters, and that's really when a lot of that story is coming to into being, because whereas I may draw on this guy for half an hour tonight, when you're working on a full design of a character, you may spend a week with the character, if not longer. And so you have a lot of time getting to know that character, and that backstory, even though it sounds silly sometimes, I think if you try and tell people, I came up with a backstory for it, and even if it's not important, that backstory that you're developing is answering questions like why they have a radio on their belt, like why they wear a compass, why whatever the idea is. Like, those backstories are so crucial to good character design. So yeah, and I think you start to kind of fall in love with the characters as well. I mean, that can be dangerous, because if you fall in love with the character too much and it's gonna go through a review process, you get your heart broken a little bit. But I don't think there's any changing that. I think that's just part of the process, is you start to fall in love with your characters. And then you gotta train yourself to be able to let go of your characters as other people help kind of bring them to fruition. Which ends up being the best part, is when other people start bringing things to the character. Even the stuff that you don't like, I guarantee you look back on it and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, it's such a much more rich character just because that other person got a hold of it and brought something. Some of my favorite stories was when I would have this like shallow story that I developed on my own, and then like an animator would spend weeks with a character and they'd do all kinds of things with it that I just never intended the character to do, and then find out that they were going through a rough time and it reminded of their grandmother or grandfather or something like that, and they imbued a lot of that into the character. And oh my god, it's like the most touching stuff you can possibly imagine. All right, we're getting this hand done here. We can probably start moving up the arm. But yeah, I love thinking about the backstories. To me, thinking about the backstories is I think it's the most character design you're doing. Learning how to draw and knowing how to design things on paper, and I think that's technically character design, but I think real character design is like coming up with who that character is, what their motivations are. I think that's everything. And sometimes I don't even tell myself stories. It's just how they would act. You know, are they sensitive? Are they bold? Are they machismo? You know, what is it? Oh, that's great. Yeah, I can't imagine. You know, can you imagine like someone who's been doing something like like a web comic or something like that for so long? You know, some of the old guys, Schultz or whoever. I don't know if Schultz was actually alive when he started bringing people on. I'm not sure if Jim Davis or anyone like that is actually having other people draw for him, but gosh, it must be so hard to let that stuff go, but it's the number one way to really see something grow and have a life of its own. So I'm trying to break up this arm in here because I've got a lot of big shapes. Actually, I don't like those. I'll kind of shrink those down here a little bit so there's a little bit of a rest. I'm getting kind of like an evenness of details around here. If I go quiet, it usually means I'm either struggling with something or I'm just not quite sure about something. So you guys can watch me struggle. If I go quiet, just know that that's like me not freaking out, but just like, what the heck am I doing? You know, speaking of you drawing things that your 4-year-old is coming up with, I'll tell you just a little bit of old man advice here. I didn't realize just how important it was going to be. But to this day, my kids, who are now in high school, bring up characters that they came up with, you know, and they feel ownership over them, you know, that I drew, and, you know, that I listened to them, and didn't think it was that big of a deal when I was doing it, but much bigger deal than I thought. And I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I was able to hang out with them and listen to their little wacky ideas. A lot of them were undrawable, so there's that. Try and clean up these shapes a little bit. Alright, so... Oh, thanks. I love drawing hands. Yeah, hands are... I think it was Glenn Keane said it more recently. It's just like, if you're going to get anything right, get the hands and the eyes right. They say everything. And I agree with that even before he said that. I just think that there's so much beauty in hands and the elegance of how someone moves, or the, you know, like, we used to, my house when I grew up with had a lot of brickwork on it, and masons would come out and work on different aspects of it when they would need repair. And their hands, you know, and all the fishermen that I worked with, it just, their hands had work on them. I just love it so much. I love that history. Magdalena's asking about the animation stuff that I've been doing. What am I using for the circles? I think I read 11. Oh, for the cycles. I gotta work on that because it's gotten me in trouble a little bit. I've been doing a kind of like animation technique, which is, it's not the healthiest thing to do, but these are just for fun, so I don't really care. But I just animate forward. I don't really like do the beginning and end pose and middle pose and then start filling in. I just one frame, and then I have a mess, and then I go through and I kind of clean it up, which is precisely why in a professional environment you would never do that. But for me, it's been really fun. But I've been doing about 9 to 10 frames, and that is mostly just because that's what's still fun for me. It's not like an ideal walk cycle or anything like that. It's just like that's for me. More drawings than that, and I start to think like I said at the beginning, I lose interest a little bit. Like it's just for fun. It's more than I think I want to take on. That may not always be the case, but for now, that's exactly what it is. That's all right. I figured it out. I was only confused because a lot of people do ask me about the circles, because this program that I use has an awesome circle template, and people are always like, "How are you doing those?" Circle template. I don't do them. It does them. So I'm probably doing too much detail as I'm moving, but this is just how I like to draw when I'm free drawing. All right, let's get going on this. Kind of excited about this carapace thing here. I'll admit I'm still not 100% on the face, but we'll see. We'll see where I go. Type of creatures are my favorite to draw. My favorite types of creatures are usually my version of like caricatures of people, or of not always people, but of just like things that I find interesting that day or that moment. You know, I've done characters based on stoplights before, traffic lights. I've done characters. I use creatures as kind of a way to play with something that I found fascinating that day. So it's not, creatures for me are a very free way to try out things, to kind of like interpret something that I found fascinating that day. So I don't know, I guess that's my favorite exercise, is just to play with ideas. You know, like I said, if I saw a stoplight and I just, you know, was just sort of enamored with the sort of shape of it that day, then to go home and kind of play with it and just, it's like I'm starting to own that shape a little bit, own the logic of it a little bit. And I don't know, that's big for me. It's like adding to this library, this repository that I keep sacred in my head. I love this little secondary ridge these things down at the bottom here have, where I don't know why I didn't add that in. That's really beautiful. Thank you, nature. See, okay, so Jake, you're onto the Clip Studio. Yeah, the concentric thing, and then The other thing to do is, and actually Dave Girton taught me this, is you go through, and Photoshop is kind of like the standard for like marking menus and just overall tool layout. And a lot of times, because Clip Studio can save Photoshop files, it makes it really a lot more possible to go between the two programs. So if one can do something that the other can't, you can go back and forth pretty easily. It doesn't carry the rulers over. If you save a PSD and you've got rulers laid out, it'll hose those, so be careful of that. But go through and lay the two softwares out as similarly as possible, down to like your hotkeys and marking menus and things like that. Or not marking menus, those are for Maya. But get them as close as possible, and that way when you're going between them and you're hitting one hotkey for one thing, it's the same in the other program. Most of them are the same, but it's worth taking the time and just making sure they're all the same. It makes such a big difference in your life. I'm not keeping up with you guys. Yeah, I recommend it. I really do. I think it's a beautiful drawing program. I think that to give you an idea of like the difference in the brushes, because it's not like Photoshop doesn't have really powerful brushes, but when you go into the tool menu of each brush, you can adjust your pressure sensitivity on a curves level. So you have all this like really intricate control of how your brush responds to your hand, and whether you're heavy-handed like me, or you have a very light touch, but you're still trying to get a really particular kind of mark, you can adjust the brushes so that they're flowing exactly how you hope that they will. Whereas in Photoshop, they tend to be a little bit more rigid about that stuff. There's just not as many controls for the pressure. And of course, there's just all kinds of things that Clip can do that Photoshop can't do. But that one right there is, to me, for the drawing experience alone, is the difference. It's just the fact that you can really tune your brushes, and it just feels so much more natural. Alright, I'm starting to not like that. I'll get back to that in a second. I want to get some more reinforcing stuff going. So I'm looking at like how these like fly eyes kind of bulge out, and I was making those teeth too big, and I really like how the scale is set to the size of those eyes by having just like these little shapes. And I was going to make them too long. I'm glad I stopped and kind of redid that. My instinct was wrong. Some of this stuff I'm going to come back to. Oh yeah, the flatting brush is just like a nice, it has like a nice thick to thin. That's a good one to practice measuring your tolerances on. You make your marks, and when you start to get like a flow going, if it's dropping the ink too much at the beginning or too much at the end or too much in the middle, then go into the settings down here in this kind of like this little wrench down here, and then here, I'll even open it up. So you open up your brush, and then you can get into let's see, I think it's not the brush. Okay, so I have the brush size, but then you see here there's like this Bezier curve. So I'm going in and I can actually adjust this, and I'm not going to because I like where it's at. But based on the pen pressure sensitivity or tilt or velocity or just random, because if you're making like kind of like jittery brushes, you have those, and you can adjust the pressure sensitivity. So if your curve pressure point is that you want to start off really light and then get heavy and then get light again, then you have this like downward arc. But if you're a little bit more light-handed, you may have that arc going much more like lobed up over the top. So get in here, play with this curve, make your marks, try filling things, and you'll start to get an understanding of like how you move. And I love it. It's awesome. And yeah, and it's not as easy to set all this stuff up on the iPad. But all the tools and little knobs and all the little things you need are there. But it's because the pen's a little different. It's always going to feel a little bit different. So it just takes a little time and a little getting used to. All right, let's get some details in here. Sorry, I'm definitely going quiet on you guys for a second here. I will say, and this goes for a lot of software, but Clip Studio in particular, there are some very alien aspects of it where it acts in ways or it just doesn't feel like you can find your tools, because they really did do a lot of things their own way, which a lot of modern softwares will lean into the fact that there's like kind of like a way that most people expect things to work, and they want users up and running as quickly as possible, so they use the same hotkeys, they put things in the same directories, and they did a lot of that in Clip, but there's quite a few things that are not where you'd expect them to be, or the way that they do things are a little bit different. The way that their masks are handled is a little different. There's like little eccentricities, which once you figure out like why they did it certain ways, then all of a sudden it just makes sense and you don't really get mad anymore. But at first, when you're just like so used to other programs who have been doing it kind of like a more standardized way, it can be a little bit frustrating. So just let it be frustrating, and just take the time to just realize that it's just a piece of software and it will come together. It's really easy to give up on that stuff. I just gotta get these chest plates done a little bit here, and then I can jump back and look at the chat. Go. I didn't know you could open them up in Clip Studio. I mean, maybe I did know that, but I've just been building my own brushes and then mad that I can't build them in Photoshop. But that's cool. Whatever gets you up and running. I think I've said in the past I've just been too lazy to convert a lot of my brushes, so maybe that's something I need to get on. The thing I really like about the program, which I think is kind of funny, but it feels like the people who developed it cared about it. I don't know how to describe it other way. It felt like they wanted it to be good. So when you're using it, and then at first you're kind of like irritated that it's not working the way that you're used to things working, and then you mess around with how they actually thought about it. A lot of times it's better. A lot of times it's like it works better than the way you've been using it. There are certain things that are still a little bit quirky, and I kind of find those frustrating if they are still frustrating to me. But yeah, like I said, it's like any program. It just has a lot of little eccentricities that you just have to learn. All right, so now we've got that established. Do this other one. Sure, save. Oh, you guys are all kinds of sharing tonight. Cool. Yeah, I haven't downloaded anybody else's brushes for Clip yet, but I'll definitely go check those out. And I've said it in the past, and maybe I'll just say it once in a while. Everybody on here, everybody chatting while I'm just sitting here drawing. If you guys want to start like sharing stuff like your sites and putting links in, I don't know if that's like frowned upon on some sites or whatever, because I've noticed like people like are too polite to do it, but like if you guys want to share each other's work and follow each other and all that stuff, feel free. I mean, this is an awesome time. You guys are all out here. You got something in common. You like stylized character design. You know, throw links in. The chats get posted up with the videos after I get done drawing at the end of the night, so the chats are replays, so even if someone doesn't go right away and they're coming back, they look at it, they can always find you that way. Anyway, just an offer. No pressure. But I like when you guys start sharing. It's awesome. That guy's coming together. It's like bug gorillas. Yeah, you should definitely check out Steven's work. Stuff's Cool. That funny point where I'm like looking at the other arm to see like what I did. That's always the funniest thing when I'm designing characters. And they have like 2 of something or 3 of something. God forbid, tentacles. And I'm like, and I design one that's like crazy. And then you're just like, wow, how did I do that? Like, what does that look like in an angle? You know, you draw something at an angle that's a little bit convenient for you, but then you realize you gotta draw 8 more and at angles that you're not so comfortable with. Oh, I forgot all those little knuckles. Knuckle barnacles. Gotta have knuckle particles. Here. Sorry, going quiet on you guys again. I'm concentrating. I'm just trying to make sure I get the rhythm of these arm spikes similar to the other arm. Nice thing is that he's organic, so they don't have to be like symmetrical, but they do have to look like they're doing the same thing. There you go. Let's get the little network thing going on. I love it. Hopefully you guys end up with some people to have conversations with. Oh, don't worry about having the art blocks. You are in good company. I think everybody that comes out is facing the same stuff, and especially right now where like art is just like really hard to make. And everything just always feels so sour right now, but things are looking up and you're gonna get motivated to do something if you got people coming by and kind of cheering you on. That's always a good thing. I know that I make a lot of art for myself, but I make it for you guys and anybody else who likes this stuff on certain days when I'm just not always feeling up to it. It's nice to have accountability in your life. Don't ever be ashamed of being an art block though, please. Everybody, and I mean everybody, like think of the best artists that you know. They're having art block. It's just a thing. It's just part of being an artist. It's okay. Alright, so that, now we just do his back legs and so, oh, I think he needs a little, right, he needs that. Yeah, I'm leaving him for later. Yeah, I was gonna get to him, I promise. I like getting called out, that's for one thing. For these back legs, I think I'm gonna get kind of like this, like these beetles, the way that their legs work, where it's kind of like swells and then it has joints. But I think I like these the little hairs that are on the bottoms. So I want to get some of that going as well. That'll look pretty cool. So I don't know if it's clear, but like I was using these larger spikes up here in the front to sort of like play off of like the way that fur works on the front of the gorilla, and then the narrow legs and the back are kind of playing off the fact that fur gets a little tighter, a little closer to the body. One thing Clip does, which is kind of funny, is when you hit undo, if you haven't really picked up your pen all that much while you're making marks, it'll delete all the marks that you made, like as if it's like all in kind of like a single pass. Even though you might have picked up your pen a little bit, like in a certain amount, it'll take multiples out. And that can be really great. It's really efficient, but it's sometimes just like, wait, not all of them. I only messed up the last line. Oh, I appreciate that. I'm glad you guys are getting something out of this, because I do. I get a lot out of it. Alright, so I'll get this little back leg over here done. This one's a little bit of a cheat, because I'm sure it's actually behind that arm, but I want to make sure I have that silhouette in there. Let's get some of these like hairs going on. They're really cool. Has a lot of texture to it. I feel like he needs one more little carapace plate. Yeah, I think that works better. I don't know, I like the rhythms better when there's odd numbers. Play with the soil a bit. And now I can get these antennae in. Okay, so hey Greg, wondering what your first studio job was and how you get your foot in the door of an industry. I graduated with a 2D animation diploma back in 2018 and having a really hard time. I got in the door by hounding people. I know I've kind of told this a little bit maybe last week or something like that, but one thing that I didn't say was I used to go to San Diego Comic-Con every year, and I would bring my portfolio, and most people were down there trying to spend their money, which I wish I had money, but I didn't. I was down there looking for work, and I would do that at every possible convention, and they didn't have a lot of like the entertainment conventions and light boxes and CTNs that they have now. So that was like kind of the closest you could get to sort of industry professionals. So I was just chomping at the bit to meet these people. And the first years I went there, I was just kind of like getting to know faces and getting to know people and seeing what was out there and seeing what people were doing. And I just happened to have been able to meet a guy named Doug Tenaple who created Earthworm Jim. He came and gave a couple of lectures and an exhibition at my college, and I think I conveniently annoyed the crowd out of him, just following him around, asking him all kinds of questions. But I hounded him with my portfolio for years until he finally had something for me, and basically just worked my tail off and kind of proved myself. And that's really the next part of getting a job, is like just showing that you can do the job and that you're reliable and that you meet your deadlines. So things have definitely changed. That's not really the same way people get jobs anymore. You're not like walking around with your website, although at CTN a couple of times I've been I've been looking at people's portfolios on iPads and stuff like that, and I really enjoy that. I think it's really convenient, and it's nice, easy way to curate your work. Alright, I'm going to turn the rough off on this thing, and I'll just go and put a few more details on it, and then I think we'll move on and do something a little cuter. Oh, I like this guy. Just want to make sure I tweak all the line work a little bit. But yeah, as far as like getting in, unfortunately, and I kind of wish it wasn't this way, but I really think social media, having a good presence on social media is really helpful. Showing that you're prolific, showing that you're you're trying to up your skills even after school. I think that's the thing, was when you graduate, you feel like people are gonna be ready and waiting for you, but that's just not the case. People aren't waiting for you at the door. And that was a really hard lesson for me to learn. It's really depressing because you work so hard in school to find out that they don't even know you exist. A lot of good schools, Cal Arts and stuff like that, they have good job placement, but you got to do it on your own in most scenarios. So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but I think I can't give you any specific advice on how to get in, other than to be prolific and be in people's faces. One thing that I've said recently to some folks, but also holds true, is you have to get used to rejection. That's part of the process. That's part of getting a job. Is the fact that you don't take no for an answer, that you're gonna get rejected, and that is just okay. That's fine. It just means the company is not ready for you, or you're not ready for the company. But at some point, everything will come together, if it was meant to be. I don't know if that actually helps, but yeah, it's difficult. Just keep trying, even with the same companies. Keep trying. Just keep telling them that you're there, that you want to work. That's the best thing you can do. All right, so let's move this guy out the way. Put him over here. So now let's do something a little cuter. Time is at 12, so that was like an hour or something like that. I don't think this one will be quite as intense. So I like the forms of these roly-poly bugs. I kind of like the roundness of them. I don't think I got much out of that rhinoceros beetle, so I'm gonna see if I can't do something cute with the rhinoceros beetle. But I like the proportions and the kind of the big head and cute eyes and the short legs. Oh, virtual SG, thanks. Yeah, the thing is, I've kind of learned to like it, so I kind of leave it. I leave the undo the way it is, even though I'm not trying to sound masochistic in a way, but there is part of me that kind of likes the punishment of it a little bit, where sometimes the mark goes away and it's this little mental test. It's can I just draw it back faster than I could undo it? I just like that challenge. It does sound masochistic, but anyway, I'm not. I just like the challenge. That is a personal preference. Alright, so little bug legs going here. And then definitely needs a big horn. quiet on you guys again. Let's see. Starting to do something for me. We'll do almost like spider eyes, and then yeah, we could do something with that. He's getting top heavy, so I'm gonna give him a little bit more stability on his front legs here. You know, I liked how they were kind of tucked in. I just don't want him to look like he's gonna tip over. And then he's got these two legs here that are a bit more meek looking. Yeah, now it doesn't look like he's gonna tip over, and then I think we can probably give him like a little tail back here. Like that. Alright, I'm going to shrink him ever so slightly, and then let's hit him with some darker line. The nice thing about the brushes on clip here is you can set your preset of whatever you want it to be, and then this little palette right here, the one that says you know, the name of the brush and then the brush size, whatever, you can, in the brush settings, these little eyeballs next to each setting, expose those in this sort of sub palette here. So if you don't want to ever mess with a setting, then you can hide it and it won't show up there. But if there's things like post correction, which I don't actually use, I need to turn those off, but there's room, so I just leave them. But if there's things in there like the pressure sensitivity, like I have times where I adjust my brushes based on my fatigue level, so I want to adjust the curve. So like when I get tired, I get like really heavy handed, and so I need the brush to be lighter, and so I'll ease that off. Or, you know, if there's a stamp brush that I'm using, you know, you may want to have that brush be have some variation in it, that, you know, every time you make the mark is a little bit different. So it's nice. I love that you can customize what you can adjust on each brush. Have a good night, man. Just gonna, we're going with a cute character, but as long as the shape rhythms are cute, you can still put kind of like craggy details and things, and they still work pretty well. That's a tough one to sell to a marketing person, I'll tell you that. That's from experience, but you can do it. So looking closer, that's kind of what I wanted to do this for, is like that difficulty is really common where you just use it verbatim, and those choices, they're not wrong. That's not there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not what, if you're looking for something that's a bit more unique, a bit more something that people haven't seen too much of before, then you need just like a different mindset as to like how to achieve a little bit more of a unique character. And so that's what I'm trying to kind of show, is that like I'm using a lot of these, but I'm trying to mix things, and step number one really is having multiple pieces of reference, trying to come at it from lots of different angles, thinking about your shape logic rather than the specificity of each form. And I know it comes with practice, but that's the goal. I know how difficult it is to use reference, and I fall prey to it all the time, where you just end up drawing drawing what's in front of you is something that we're all capable of doing, but that's not necessarily answering your goal. So I hope you're seeing ways to just in what I'm doing tonight, and ways to use the reference but to not use it straight up. I don't know if you guys just saw me do that, but I don't do it often, but when I'm drawing things, sometimes I will draw a line, and it'll look like I'm erasing it to you guys, but what I'm actually doing is I'm just trying out the shape, and I know I'm going to erase it, so I have my hand on undo right away, and I'll just, I'll just hit a mark and undo and undo and undo and undo and undo. And when I find it, then I'll erase it again, but then I know where it goes. I do that a lot when I'm doing things in perspective, trying to find out like where things actually go. Can't do that in the traditional world. I'm going to ignore the tail because I rotated his back feet back, and so now that'll collide a little bit. And then do a little bit of a cute eye on this guy. Sure, but I can put the PSDs up. Nobody asked for it last week, so I didn't think anybody wanted it. But if you want me to put that PSD up, I'll put it up. Well, I won't be putting this one up, so I'll do that instead. I'll do that one tonight. So yeah, if anybody doesn't know, at the end of these, if I'm doing like rendering techniques and things that are like, you know, you could look at the PSD files and glean some little bit of information off of, I'll throw the PSDs up on Gumroad, and the links are in, I think, in the channel and also in the description. But that way, you guys want to tear my files apart and see what it is, kind of break down the illusions, feel free. Yeah, I get it. I used to buy, I used to go on DeviantArt and ask for people to give me their PSD files. 9 times out of 10, it's not, you know, you could have figured it out, but I don't know. Sometimes you see someone do something in a way that you've never done it before, and you learn a lot. All right, that guy's about as cute as he's gonna get. Just tweak his lines a little bit, and we'll probably shove him off in the corner and work on something else. Yeah, the PSDs, I mean, for all intents and purposes, they're all virtually the same, but you know, there are a few differences in them from time to time. Alright, what are we going to do next? Do something more, maybe a little bit more mechanical. I don't know if I'm... Something I wish I would have learned a long time ago. I'm going to draw for a little bit, but I'm going to come back to that question because I want to think about it for a second. Because there's lots of things I wish I knew, but maybe stuff that you guys have all heard other people say. And I'll say one really boring thing. I apologize for this ahead of time. I wish I had done more life drawing. And I did a lot of life drawing. I wish I had just put more time into it. Alright, I'm going to attempt something a bit more mechanical right now. I'm a little tired, but we'll see. So I'm gonna do like a speeder bike kind of thing, I think. It may become something else. It may not end up, I may just delete it. Let's see. Play off these shapes again. Looking at these like motorcycles, and I know I'm trying not to do too Star Wars-y thing, but I'm also not too worried about it either. If I do. Making friends. Why am I not even over? I mean, it sounds familiar, but why? Can you tell me which one that is? Making friends. Sounds so familiar. I think I did a comic based called Making Friends, but I didn't know if I ever published it. What was that? You got me completely... Oh, it was the one. Okay. I might share that at a later date, but that's still something that I consider creature box, and so I don't I'm not just like pushing that stuff around right now. Creature box is its own thing still, so maybe someday. Some of these carapace things going on in here. Insects to make machines. Right. guys remember the fishing robot, huh? I didn't even remember the fishing robot until you said it. This funny thing that used to happen on Ratchet and Clank projects, where we have directories and directories of concepts and things like that from previous games that never got used, and we'd be looking for stuff, to reuse or something, or someone just needed it for some task or whatever, and an image would come up and you'd be like, I don't remember drawing this, and you knew you drew it because it was definitely your style, but you didn't remember drawing it. Still one of the most surreal experiences is when you stumble across something that you definitely drew that you have no recollection of sitting down and drawing. The noise, yeah, I know what you're talking about with the noise. The the unfortunate thing is it's not a trick. I mean, it's a trick, but like the painting brush that I used in Photoshop to do that with actually had noise in the brush, and that really was most of it. I'm not sure if you can add noise in these brushes. Kind of fell out of favor with me, so I haven't been doing it in a while. But it is a cool look. It has like a filmic look to it. So again, I'm just trying to think of like insect forms here as I'm kind of coming up with this tech, where I kind of like undulate. These kind of like truss rods here. You guys notice I get a lot quieter when I'm doing technology? Sorry. Anyone learning to hear every single muscle name in anatomy? I never succeeded. I definitely tried that, and I'm pretty good at it. I love it. And actually, my wife, her dad, was a gross anatomy professor at Tufts University. So he used to let us go and draw in the gross lab and draw cadavers and stuff. And that was crazy, disgusting, and awesome at the same time. And learned a lot from him. We had teachers who were just fascinated by it. For whatever reason, my college had acquired like real skeletons somehow and kept them in like the prop closet. So I used to take those out and lay them around and draw those all the time. Yeah, I love that. I love anatomy. The thing about anatomy is like it's the same in most animals to some degree. Like when you do comparative anatomy, it's just so similar that you benefit from it even if you're not drawing people all the time. I don't draw people all the time. I'm bored of people, but their anatomy is so fascinating. So if I was wanting to do this a bit more perfect, I would definitely set up like a perspective grid and use the ruler tools that are in clip here. And that would give me some really nice accuracy. But I think because I just want to be free sketching tonight, I'm not going to do that. So you guys will have to put up with my wobbly ellipses and stuff. I haven't forgotten a question. Just trying to concentrate on some of this tech stuff, and once it gets to an easier point, I'll jump into it. Yeah, the pelvic bone is really tough to draw. And actually, I was in the same position, and that was exactly like why I was pulling out those skeletons. Have you seen? And I'm not gonna do it if it's not necessary. But have you seen the bowl trick, like how to draw a pelvic bone based on a bowl? Because that's my way. No, no, they haven't. They've gotten better, which I didn't expect. I thought the computer was going to take my ability to draw ellipses away from me. But no, they've gotten better because I have a better mental idea now what they're supposed to look like, and so I can get to them faster. So I was surprised, but I was elated at the same time that I can figure out the direction of an ellipse and much faster. So yeah, definitely should have gone the other way, but it didn't. They're not perfect though, as you can see. But they're better than they used to be. The way I think about it now is like learning to drive a car that's automatic, and then when you go and drive a manual, you know what the car is supposed to do. So I actually think learning to drive an automatic is actually easier to teach you how to drive a manual versus just trying to drive one from scratch. Not impossible, but it's That's funny. I didn't realize that there was a distinction. It makes sense, but that's kind of unfortunate that you'd have to go back just to be able to drive a manual car, especially like if you were in a jam and your buddy was drunk or something like that and you had to take his car home. That was a pretty specific example, wasn't it? Anyway, you get my point. Definitely a Star Warsian bike, isn't it? But that's alright. It's just what it is. Alright, Magdalena, thanks for coming out. This thing will be recorded, so, and I'm not talking anymore either, so just watch it later if you want. I'll have it posted up in a little bit. Probably gonna do just like one more drawing after this, and then I'll get some sleep too. I don't know, does it make sense how I'm using the bug reference in this one? Obviously the feet here that I'm doing. Alright, sorry, I know I'm not rambling like I normally do, but when I get into this tech stuff, I kind of get quiet. But yeah, take care. Have a good night. Probably gonna wind it down after one more drawing, like I said, and then I think next week we'll get back into some rendering stuff, and then the week after that, if it's I don't know what the date is, but I think we'll go back and forth between ideation stuff where we'll do something like this, different ways to like come up with stuff, free sketching, and then we'll go back to the rendering stuff. Anyway, have a good night. All right, let's see. Just put that in. So anyway, yeah, this is just sort of a quick attempt to use the bug to create like technology. It's gonna look pretty cool. So you know, it just has like this subtle I'm riding a bug kind of vibe to it. I think it kind of does. My thoughts on different parts of the scooter. This thing right here, you mean? So, you know, I was definitely thinking of like, you know, I definitely robbed the speeder front from Star Wars, but I wanted to kind of like do like the little like the mandibles and that kind of like plating like on this little bug creature over here, and then like the scalloping on this like main you know, what's the main body of a motorcycle called? I guess normally it's like the gas tank, but anyway, I'll call it the fuselage, but like the covering where you have like the plating and then playing up the kind of like wasp tail, you know, which definitely could have even been bigger. You know, we could have gone swollen with it like a wasp tail does. And I think putting like the little bow and the handlebars, you know, just kind of like keeps that shape logic going, and just having like organic answers to how the construction of this thing was kind of like thought through, versus, you know, if it was based on like World War II technology, or if it was based on fish, if it was based on, you know, like if you think about like the ships that they did in Lilo and Stitch, there was, you know, those were all fish-based designs, and so they had like a really specific look to them. I think if you did an entire property on, you know, like a world that was like mostly bugs and technology, like I think the influences would start to show up in just about everything. I don't know if that really answers your question or not, but I think using like the patterns, the sort of like shape logic of like how like that scalloping works, or how like the articulated legs on this fly with the orange legs works for the landing gear, starts to give you some shapes that you can try. You know, you could definitely do like multiple legs on this if you wanted to. That could be really cool in Insectoid. So when it landed, there was like multiple legs that kind of popped out. In fact, why don't we make some adjustments to this that are a little bit more bug-like even. So we can go bigger with this. possibly even emulate some of like the striping that goes on in them. Yeah, that feels nice. That's really fun. And just gonna randomly put a circle there for no reason. Could definitely make these things much longer. That would definitely get them in slightly curved inward. Push the idea a little bit of those mandibles. Maybe even some secondary ones here. Kind of help reinforce that concept. What else could we do? We could I mean, you could definitely do like a glass dome on it or something like that that kind of emulated some like the roundness of their eyes or something like that. I don't know if that's what I want to do to it, but let's see what it looks like. Do it on a different layer. I don't really like it, but you could definitely make that work. What else could we do? Yeah, you could. I mean, you could definitely we could just for quick and dirty. You grab this leg here. And we would add like another joint here. You know, and immediately it starts to. Well, why don't I just do it? And when you're designing tech, sometimes it really does need to just be an idea. So you're trying to work out the functionality, but you don't have to make it perfect the first time. That can be in further iterations down the line where you start really solving. Oh, cool. Glad I merged that. Let's just redraw that. So, kind of has, even though it's still not 6 legs, it's like, it has like kind of like the insect quality to it. You can go as far as you want to being more literal. I think I'll make that seat dark. Just the handlebars too. You know, and then of course you put some crazy bug logo on it or something like that. Have a good night, Nick. Thanks, man. There's no end to the futzing that you can do on technology. Just keep adding stuff. Shouldn't, but there is no end. Alright, so that's going to be into the little scooter bug thing here. Let's do one more something or other. I think we'll go back to what we did. We did a. I'm not gonna do a spacesuit tonight. That'll take my hand off. What are we gonna do? Oh, we can. You know, we can reverse it. We can do a. Yeah, I'm not even gonna say it anymore because it's gonna sound ridiculous. But so do all my ideas. Alright, so tell you what, we'll use the puzzle piece trickery. So we'll get as much space as possible. Pretty much used all the space anyway, didn't we? Alright, that's okay. Alright, we're going to stick them right in here. Alright, so spacesuit inspired bug. Not digging that. All right, you guys know where I'm going with this, right? Last creature of the night. Let's see if we can't make him funny. It's always good to land on something funny once in a while. Can I talk about how you know when you've found a good idea? Is it just a feeling, or is it something more specific that you're looking for? It is a little bit of a feeling. So I know that's kind of like what we set up for the topic tonight, and I guess I've kind of steered away from it, but I'm glad you asked. So I want to, if I want to tell a joke, I want it to make me laugh. Like I want it to be funny. If I want to scare someone, I want it to scare, to feed off the things that I think are scary universally and also just personally. But there's a lot of like gut instincts, and I think artists tend to look for more than, how do I put this in the clearest way possible? They overcomplicate whether something's good or not. The thing you have going for you is you have good taste. And that taste doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, that you're going to be like a fashion designer and everyone's going to be wearing what you came up with. It's more like you have a particular shtick, a routine, something that the way that you approach things, and it's a standard that you hold your work to. And so I when I am looking for a piece, I want it to answer the emotional recall of what I'm looking for. So if something is scary or spooky, sometimes I'm looking for a little bit of a dark humor. I think you notice in a lot of my pieces, I'm looking for a little bit of dark humor. So even if I want something to be scary, I try and find some way to have a little bit of fun with the idea, so that you can't take it too seriously. When something is just one note, I think that's when you have a bad idea. And that's definitely like a personal preference. But I find that if you have an idea and it's just funny, or if it's just scary, it's boring. And I think that's when you really have to start asking yourself, like, how do I make something heroic and scary? How do I make something cute and ugly at the same time? Then I start to think that because your audience, whether they, what they think they want is often very different than what they actually want. What they actually want is to be is to be compelled, to have an emotional response to something, but a response that they're not used to having. Something, like I get a lot of comments on some of the cute characters I do that are kind of grotesque, and it's like, oh, it's so cute, but gross. It's not that that's an amazing character. It's that I've compelled an emotional response out of someone that they weren't used to. It's a unique way for them to perceive looking at something. So, like we're all watching cooking shows now, and the whole salty and sweet thing is, became much more prominent than it ever was before. But that, it's one of those things where it compels people, and I think that's the kind of thing that you're looking for to kind of qualify, is your work good or not? Is the idea good or not? Is it asking for more than just one note of emotion? If you've got a predator, it's when you see lionesses and lions who are normally like ferocious playing with their cubs. There's another side to it. There's a little bit more to the character, to that species, to that animal. Even when there's documentaries where it shows crocodiles carefully, making nests and going, through, or great white sharks, nurturing and playing, and when they're not hungry, they're actually docile, and it's these compelling moments where you see this other side to a character, and I think that's when you know that you're onto something. When you're not just hitting one note. So if you're designing a prey character, like we've done in some of the, we did in the earlier exercise when we were doing the challenge, is it just a prey character, or does it have other things? Can it be scary? Can it be intelligent? Can it be, what else is that character able to do that people wouldn't expect? And I think that's when you're onto something. There's other things. I like shape logic. I think I'm looking for a particular shape logic. I'm looking for a balance in my shapes, and that's an aesthetic thing. But those are answers to, I have to have that compelling character first, and then if all that stuff's working, then I can start to find pleasing shapes that answer that stuff. It's easy to get caught up in the design, as far as like, is it a good drawing or not? If this like stupid little astronaut based bug character that I'm doing right now was drawn poorly, but the idea was really solid, it wouldn't matter. It would be still a really good idea. So I'm always looking for the idea. I'm always looking for the idea that sort of challenges the norm, adds a little bit of extra dimension to a character. And that's when, like someone earlier was talking about, like, do you ever come up with backstories in your for your characters? And yeah, absolutely, all the time. And those backstories can be very, very quick. It's just a gut feeling. It's an emotion, Like I knew I wanted to do a bug, but I wanted it to kind of make me laugh. And so the bug needed to be scary and kind of grotesque, but it also needed to be goofy at the same time. I don't know if that answers your question, or answers the question. It's but you have to rely on your taste. You have to rely on your sense of humor, or on your sense of scaring people. Like, what are you into? Like, what makes you tick? Like, that's something that you have to lean into and be really excited to explore. Good. Yeah, it's a tough thing to explain for me, but I want more out of my characters. I'm working on some kids books right now. I don't know if half the parents in this world would buy them for their kids because they're scary. They don't pander to kids, and not scary in the sense that like they're like horrifying. It's just they're not like whimsical little watercolors, and but I know what my kids grew up liking, and my audience is actually a bunch of kids who are fascinated with scary things and horrific things and play with bugs, and little kids talk about death all the time, mainly because they're not going to die anytime soon. The likelihood of them dying is so small that they're just fascinated with it. It's new and it's exciting. So even though Disney may not be exploring all these kinds of extra levels of characters all the time, what makes their best characters tick is the ones that have dimension to them, that have more than one note to them. And it does take practice, but the best thing you got going for you is your own taste, your own, because unfortunately the thing that you have to turn against yourself is that when you're watching The Mandalorian, or you're watching Harry Potter movies, or you're watching any amazing production. You think about, I always laugh about the time when the Hobbit movies were coming out and people were just like, oh, another one. It's like they are a marvel, but like that mindset is so hilarious to me, where people are so good at being critical of amazing things. They're able to pick out bad CG, bad acting, bad design, and then they go home and they work on their own pieces and they make something that is not even close to as good as what they were just critiquing. And what you start to have to do, which it can be really painful, is you turn that heavy critical eye that you probably, everyone on this talk with us tonight probably has an incredibly critical eye for some of the best productions out there. You have to turn that against yourself. You have to, and you have it. Like everyone here has it. Like nobody here doesn't have a critical eye, but it is painful to feel it against yourself. But you get used to it. But it's it's why we never like our work. Our standards are always higher than what we like, and that's awesome. That's a good thing. That means you're going to continue to get better and better and better, as long as you don't let it deflate you. I'm putting too much on this guy, but whatever. It's my drawing. I know better though. Cool. I mean, it's not even that late, really, considering like how many hours we've all spent together late at night. But I was drawing all day. My hand is about to fall off. So I'm going to call it there. As far as drawing goes, I'm happy to sit and talk. Talking doesn't make my hand fall off. I like the 2 notes. Reminds me of our previous comments on contrasting elements. Right. Exactly. Like find ways to make things more sophisticated. And that doesn't end at 2. You can put 3 notes into things. It depends how, I think once you get to 3, then it's like with 2, one needs to probably be a little bit more dominant. With 3, I don't really have a specific example, but I think there is a ratio where it's like one is still very dominant, one is definitely secondary, but then the third one is like nominal. You know, it's not like they're not even. It's like, but, and you could probably just keep that going. Save that. And then Jake's saying, I think what Leica does offers a good example of kids movie. Yeah. Yep. You guys want to see something? That's my Leica Paranorman head. I love it. I keep it next to me. It's actually from the production. You can actually pull the face off. It's got these magnets. I'm sure you guys have all seen how they do their animations. I've got a Kubo one as well. I buy them for myself for my birthdays. Shit's on good. But yeah, that's they hit all the right notes. They're definitely designing for themselves, for the kids in themselves. You know, my kids liked a book called Spider and the Fly, where it's basically it's a terrifying story for a little kid, but they were little and their eyes would like light up. Yeah, I got a lot of cool stuff. You want to see? I'm just doing show and tell now. Look what came today. My Iron Giant bolt. Thanks. It hasn't started beeping yet, but I'm sure it will. I got too much stuff. No, I'm not showing you my office. It's a mess. And I wouldn't be able to take the camera off the way it's mounted anyway. Someday when I clean the whole thing up, I've got like all my stock from my books and my t-shirts and everything like that all in one corner over here, and my traditional table is supposed to be set up to be doing traditional stuff, but it's just covered with like things that I haven't figured out like where they go in my office right now. But once I get it all cleaned up, I'll do something where I spin it around, take you guys on a little tour of the studio. It's just like a 12 by 12 room on the bottom floor of my house, but yeah, got tons of stuff. I don't know what else I have that's worth looking at, but I got tons of stuff. I just don't want to show you a complete mess right now. What else you got besides seeing my office? That's terrifying. Picked this up about a month ago too. This is a flip book by Jeff Smith, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do it, but it was animated by Tony or Tom. Which one did it? The twins, the Bancroft brothers. Tom Bancroft. So Tom Bancroft animated Bone. So Tom Bancroft's one of my favorite animators, and wicked nice guy. Tony and Tom are both amazing. Tony directed Mulan, and Tom was the character animator on Mushi, the dragon. And so yeah, and then Jeff Smith's one of my favorites as well, so it was kind of like a nice collision. So much cool stuff. Alright, well, if you guys don't have any questions for me, the plan for next week is going to be going back to doing some rendering. And if you guys have ideas for like surfaces that are difficult to render that you want to like have know how I would do them, we can get back to doing something like that. If not, I'll pick some stuff. So yeah, next week we'll render something up, and then the week after that I think we're going to get back to something like this, and just maybe we'll do this same exercise a couple of times, but with obviously like very different reference. Like a lot more technology. Definitely have to make sure my hand is rested before that. So we'll just bounce back and forth where we go between like rendering characters, which is fun. So it's like it's a nice exercise, and then there's drawing stuff like that, which is like nice exploration stuff. But and I think Casper's been doing it. Feel free to hit me up, or someone emailed me. I think it was Casper or Steven or something like that. Hit me up with ideas for future streams, things that you guys have seen me do, or you want to see how it's done. At some point, I may even do some tutorials on like how to use 3D. I do a lot of 3D modeling, as I've mentioned, but I don't think we're there yet. I don't think I want to bring that to the plate quite yet. But we can talk about like how to use 3D models, and I know you guys want to do like comics and stuff like that. I don't think I'm quite ready to start talking about comics. I'm certainly not as fast as and competent as some of the guys that are out there right now. But and then another thing that I wanted to do in the future is, I'm working on stuff, and it's comics and it's animation and it's character design. I'm working on my own stuff, and I think I'm just gonna work while you guys want to hang out, and so I'm just gonna work on my own stuff, and just while I'm working, you guys can watch along, and you'll see me do things that are a lot less organized. Then I try and keep the more tutorial based streams. But I think it'd be fun to just get some stuff done, and we can all be working together, and you can just kind of see like things that are up and coming. That sound good? All right. Well, hit me with any questions you have now. Otherwise, I will see you guys next Monday. Cool. Okay. Yeah, I just want to get through a few more of these. I think there's still some more stuff that I want to touch on. Cool. Okay, guys. Any last questions? I know there's a little bit of a delay, but no, looks like everyone's just signing off. Okay, I will see you guys next Monday. Have a great night.